Hey guys, welcome to Leather&Liquor&Guns. I'm Devan.
I'm Steven.
And today we're...
What the fuck are you wearing?
Well, this is my Gen Zero tank night vision.
What the fuck do you mean by Gen Zero?
Well, like now, like... What the fuck do you mean? Do you know what, like, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3...
Yeah, I'm not a fucking moron. Come on.
Well, Gen 0 came before Gen 1. And, I mean, look at this shit. Look at how fucking... This is a fucking, like, a 24 to 12 volt adapter.
Why wasn't this adapted into the electrical chair?
You dissing it?
No,
man. Commie's in the air. I had to pull out some kind of surplus something. Granted, I need a 9-volt battery to get it working, but, oh my god. And a big ass flashlight, because it doesn't actually produce any light. I need a giant spot beam to... So I technically still need a flashlight for my night vision.
Alright.
Come on, we're some bored boys. Shut up. And, in the spirit, I mean, I know you want to be in a downward angle mood.
Alright. You caught me there.
Same commie round, 762-25. We both be in the commie spirit. Well, not being commies.
Hooah. Alright, let's do this.
Okay, cool. Okay, so today we're going to be, it is a couple days past the 13th. My bad, I wasn't feeling too well, so we kind of postponed shooting the video for a couple days. But we're going to be covering what OPB put out about the hearing on the 13th, referring to BM 114, Measure 114. All right, here we go. Oregon judge issues injunction blocking high-capacity magazine ban by Jonathan Levinson. An Oregon Circuit Court judge has issued a preliminary injunction blocking the state's voter pass restrictions on firearms sales and magazine capacities from taking effect. Harney County Circuit Court Judge Robert S. Roscoe ruled Thursday that restrictions in ballot measure 114 prohibiting the purchase and carry of magazines holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition unduly frustrate the right to bear arms under Oregon's Constitution. Based upon the preliminary evidence, the result of BM 114 would be a near absolute prohibition on handguns and many other firearms with their magazines, Roscoe wrote, unconvinced by the state's expert witnesses who testified the opposite was true. Measure 114, which passed with just 50.7% of the vote in November, would require gun buyers to take a course and demonstrate an ability to load, fire, and safely store a firearm to obtain a permit to purchase. The measure would also ban high-capacity magazines and cause a loophole requiring a completed background check before a firearms sale or transfer can go forward. In court Tuesday, Roscoe extended a temporary restraining order blocking the permit requirement by taking effect while the state hashed out the application system, or how the application system would work. And I do apologize if I'm saying that judge's name wrong. I am convinced that there is irreparable harm to the constitutional right to bear arms under Article 1, Section 27. If I do not, Roscoe said in court Tuesday. Experts for both plaintiffs, Harney County residents Joseph Arnold and Cliff Asmussen, joined in the hardline gun rights group Gun Owners of America, and the state which is defending the law testified in court Tuesday. Testifying for the plaintiffs, John Isaac Botkin, a technical and educational officer in Tennessee-based T-Rex Arms, said firearms holding more than 10 rounds were common in the 18th and 19th century. University of California Berkeley history professor Brian DeLay said that while the weapons existed, they were experimental and not widely available. Because everybody goes with the fucking... No. Moving on. The state also argued that high-capacity magazines are not an instrumental component of a firearm, and there are plenty of alternatives to high-capacity magazines frequently used in Oregon. Criminals don't care, though. Evidence shows the distinction the defendants are trying to draw between firearms and magazines is a fiction, Roscoe wrote in his opinion. Firearms do not function without magazines. An analogy would be making a distinction between a car and its engine. A key sticking point to the Oregon magazine restriction, as written in Measure 114, is the ban on magazines. They can be readily restored, changed, or converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Plaintiffs argued that nearly every commercial available magazine can be altered to accept more than 10 rounds. In separate federal lawsuits, U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut, of course it's a Karen, I guess I missed that part, put the permit to purchase requirement on hold for 30 days to allow the state to stand up the infrastructure needed to process and issue permit applications. Oregon Firearms Federation plaintiffs in one of the federal cases sent an email after Roscoe's ruling praising it as good news. The battle continues both in this statewide case that Gun Owners of America has brought and the 4 other cases that are in federal court, the statement said. Lift Every Voice Oregon, the group that led the campaign for Measure 114, said in a statement that it is disappointed with the ruling. Oh, you're disappointed that our rights couldn't be taken away? Shame. Shame.
Complete shame.
However, we trust the process to move forward for full implementation of Measure 114. The group wrote, it will save lives. We will work with law enforcement to assist in completing the implementation of the permit to purchase process in a timely and equitable manner. Roscoe said he will hold a hearing within 10 days of being notified. The permit to purchase system is ready to determine if it is constitutional. He scheduled a hearing for December 23rd on the background check provisions for Measure 114.
I have a question, though. If you remember back in the beginning, one of their main arguments was taking away anything over 10-round mags would stop and lower the amount of suicides.
Oh, they're not even bringing that up anymore.
Yeah, it's not even being brought up, but I want to know how it's going to stop that. I want to know how taking 10-round mags away from legal citizens is going to stop a criminal from going to the black market and getting it. It's not going to stop anybody from going out of state and getting it. It's not going to stop anybody from going to other criminal known avenues to get their hands on said items. The only thing you're doing is stopping legal citizens from owning things that they should legally be allowed to own. But it's not even being mentioned anymore. So, how is it takes one bullet to end your life?
In that case, Derringer should be like the most illegal thing.
Yeah.
Because when a gun that only has 1 or 2 shots, if you're going to pull that whole suicide thing, wouldn't that be the gun that someone would buy for suicide? Why would I buy a gun with an 18-round mag when I plan on using 1 bullet? That doesn't make any sense. At the same time, anybody who supports a magazine ban must realize that you full-on support the criminals having those same magazines that you don't want law-abiding civilians to have, meaning that anybody against regular law-abiding civilians having anything they want, because a criminal is still going to get the same thing, anybody against a civilian having that is for a mass shooting. Because they're the ones that create these scenarios where, it was in a place where the only way they could have had it is from a grandfather. Well, also, yeah, because murder's already illegal, so it doesn't matter. That person could go in there with a 10-round magazine.
I hear of more shootings happening in no-gun zones.
So, Canada recently, I don't know if you heard about this, I may have said something, but Canada recently, they banned all semi-automatic weapons. So all pistol, literally basically all you're allowed to have is break actions and I think bolt actions. I'm not sure, I'm not a Canadian. But the shooting that basically determined that the person used an SKS. Now I think the one they had used was a Woodstock because they had already banned high capacity magazines in Canada. And so I'm no expert, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure he was done with a plain Woodstock SKS, which has a 10-round internal magazine. Okay? That's 10 rounds in a semi-automatic weapon. a Woodstock, so it's not scary. That's literally where we're going with them starting this whole ban. The article's done, but them doing the ban on the 30 rounds. That's where we're going. We're going to a point where we can't even own damn near 100-year-old weapons with eternal magazines.
I'd also like to, point out a little tidbit here. For those of you that think that all trans people are against guns and all trans people are this and stuff like that, here's a little article about trans people who want guns. The title is Oregon's LGBT community worries that the new law will keep them from obtaining guns. And it reads, some of Oregon's trans and queer gun supporters are worried that the new state law will prevent them from buying firearms. The Measure 114 grants county sheriffs and police chiefs discretion to determine who qualifies to purchase a firearm under a new permit to purchase program. But Measure 114 lacks criteria clearly defining what disqualifies applicants. Details on what makes someone a threat and what data can be used by law enforcement in making that decision. That is a problem for activists who critique law enforcement, particularly the radical justice protests that took place over the past 2 years. I just feel like if I was going to go online and say, like, the police are terrorists or something, the police would be like, well, you seem like you might not be fit for this community to be armed, says Mia Rose, a trans person of color and former licensed firearms dealer. If they were to get that information, that you got snatched up off the streets, arrested during the Portland protest prompted by the killings of George Floyd in 2020, I would assume that the law would say that they could deny your purchase or deny your right to have a permit. Rose focuses her efforts on sales and training for the LGBTQ+ and Black, Indigenous, and people of color. She said she and her friends were initially drawn to guns out of the fears that grew during the Trump presidency. Recent shootings, like those in the LGBTQ Club Q last month in Colorado Springs, left 5 dead, or at a school in Uvalde, Texas, in May that killed 19 students and 2 teachers, have solidified their desire for armed community defense. They feel like police are not there to protect them or are willing to protect them. Let that settle in. Even everyday random people are afraid of just going out of their house.
To kind of point it out, there has been a lot of people commenting on the trans flag. Where Steven is transgender, I'm not. But I am in full support of everybody being themselves and being able to defend themselves. I don't give a crap what you put in your mouth. Be able to defend the fact that you put it in your mouth, though, as long as it's not like a kid.
Yeah,
that's no.
Don't be doing that shit. Alright, no. The article continues, around 2016, there was an increase in white supremacist violence on places of worship like mosques or like gay bars, says Rose. And then every time there's a shooting, more and more people, especially in the queer and trans community, they see this and it's like, okay, let's start to do things. Activist Ross Elliott shares the desire for the community defense and opposition to Measure 114. Rose and Elliott worry the law will disproportionately inhibit outspoken marginalized groups from purchasing guns while doing little to prevent domestic terrorism. This is due to a conflict of factors, from the rise of 3D printed ghost guns to report of ties by some Oregon law enforcement officials to right-wing groups like Patriot Player and the Oath Keepers. Given abuse widely documented amongst law enforcement, Measure 114 would create an environment ripe for further corruption, Elliott says. I fully agree with that statement. Police could easily restrict permits to preferred individuals and deny others without oversight to determine if people from particular radical or ethnic or racial or ethnic groups religious backgrounds, LGBT status, or political affiliation will be screened out. Proponents of the law says it came as a response to mass shootings and hate crimes. Liz McKinnon, chairwoman of Lift Every Voice Oregon, the group that wrote Measure 114, highlights that states that have similarly passed laws have statistically shown decreases in gun and death injuries. McKinnon discounts and the concerns about police bias. The state police, I believe, will be drafting regulations that might clarify the law, she said, but they are intended to be objective and not something that's left to the whim of law enforcement. You also ask, why did you leave it to law enforcement? The status says that it can be, the status says that it can be, the sheriff or the police or their designee, and it's still possible that the legislature will choose another agency to actually be the permit agent.
Real quick. So, on that note, like the fear that the police are going to hear about what you do, they're going to see you or something, and they're going to retaliate in a certain sense, that's not that far of a fear. And just like in, the LGBTQ community and everything, that's a real fear everywhere. Like, hell, I just read on the news about how, I think it was in Texas, but chick sued the police department, dude on the force, because he used the data bank after he saw her while he was out doing his patrol and looked her up and sought her out that way. So that's not even like that far of a fetch to say that these people are going to retaliate, because it's not that far of a thing to say that the police are, corrupted.
We're not saying they are, and we're not saying they're not, but this is a real issue.
And it's a real fear that
and a real
can't
fear.
be just discounted.
Okay. Continuing. McKinnon points towards the requirement outlined by the new state law that there is to be an annual publication by police of the number of permits applications made, approved, and denied, as well as the reason for denial. She says the aim of the publication is to function as a mechanism to root out bias.
I'm going to take your phone real quick. And just, this is a picture on here of Mia Rose's firearms gear, including an AR-15 and ballistic vest at her home. I literally just read the little caption down there. So, I mean, that's definitely a setup right there. Sorry, go ahead and continue.
However, any data published beyond the metric above, including factors such as race, gender, or sexuality, will be decided by state police. We're leaving that up to them, she said. It may be important for ensuring that there's not a desperate impact. And so that's one of the issues that's being discussed. I can't answer how it's going to be resolved, but we are confident that it will be resolved. When asked what criteria would be used to deny applicants under the new law, if social media, political views, or condemnation of law enforcement could be used in making the determination, Oregon State Police replied with a link to the Firearms Instant Check System procedure the agency says have been in place since 1996. For now, the measure's opponents have won a partial victory. Last week, a state judge blocked Measure 114 from taking effect only hours after a federal judge gave it the go-ahead. Albeit with a delay in its original December 8th implementation, the state judge held this temporary restraining order at a hearing earlier this week. Attorneys for the state request a hearing December 23rd. So it's not just straight people, it's not just cis people who are afraid of losing their guns. It is everyone. We are a community built up of many colors, many what's the word? Cultures, many different languages. We are a community of a giant mixture of everybody, which isn't that what America was supposed to be? A place for the land of the free and the home of the brave, where people could come be free and make a better life for themselves without the fear of persecution.
Is that why it started out with smallpox blankets? I think the guy's head was a little smaller than mine.
Probably a little smaller.
Yeah, I can't really open my mouth.
You know, I'm not saying that...
Shut up. I gotta take this off. I can't.
I'm not saying what was done in the past was right, because it wasn't. And but what I am saying is, this isn't a straight versus gay thing. This isn't a color versus color thing. This isn't anything like that. It is literally the people against those who want to take our rights, our freedoms that were given to us just by being born. Every human being on this planet, every last one of them, has the right to be free and to be happy in their endeavors. Like I said, we don't stand with maps or anybody like that. That is not who we are. And everybody can give us as much flack as they want. A lot of people are going to like that. A lot of people aren't. I don't care if you like it or not. This is my belief system. I'm not going to change it just because it upset you. He's not going to change his belief system because it upsets you. But we are going to let you believe in what you want to believe. And we're going to let you live the way you want to live. Without us coming and attacking you.
So... we'll see you guys here later. We hope you enjoyed watching us read a couple things that OPB put out. Remember, follow George Washington's most famous probable quote, "Stay strapped or get clapped."
Have a good one.
Later, guys.